Welcome to the IT Outsourcing Secrets webinar. Thank you for joining us. I'm Deborah Frazier, the author of the book IT Outsourcing Secrets.
And I'm Stephen Knoll with Innovative Network Systems.
This webinar is the first of a mini-series that will include podcasts with leading CEOs over what should and should not be included in your IT support agreement. Today, I'm going over the first chapter in my book, which covers how to determine the IT maturity level of the service provider. At the end of this presentation, I am going to give Stephen different scenarios, and he is to tie the issue to the breakdown in processes, technology, or personnel. Now, I think that this is a good exercise as it maps the problem back to the root cause. After this webinar, you will definitely see how this equips you to make informed decisions. So let's get started. First, I would formally like to introduce Stephen Knoll. Stephen and I have worked together for over 10 years, and in my previous company, he started with them right out of college and rose to the highest ranking team in the company within 5 years. Now that was quite remarkable because that team only had 6 engineers, and he competed with over 200 engineers to get there. When the current CEO of NSI was approached to buy the company in 2015, he would only do so if Stephen agreed to come on board and run the IT operations. As you can see, he did. Since then, Stephen has restructured the organization and implemented robust systems to improve and automate processes. Within the last 4 years, Stephen has quadrupled the size of the company, and I, along with others, decided to join him because we believed in their vision. Stephen, I'm so happy that you're here with us today.
And thank you. And well, it's nice that we have been able to implement systems that automate our processes and procedures, which this makes it easier on our engineers to provide better service more efficiently. I think it's more important that we as a company are establishing a culture that focuses on taking care of our clients. We understand that every business is different, which is why we developed a customized IT program. So the service plan that we build is based on their exact needs. The ultimate goal for our company is to provide client satisfaction and help their businesses grow.
Thank you. All right, a little bit about me. I started doing IT support consulting nearly 20 years ago. In fact, the first day I interviewed for this type of position was the day before 9/11. I started off with a small little company with only 10 people. I was actually employee number 10. And that small little outfit became the fastest growing IT support company for small and medium-sized businesses in the Southeast within 4 years. I served on their leadership board, which dealt with overarching challenges such as strategic direction, growing pains, leadership structure, marketing, and so much more. By the time I left in 2017, they had close to 230 employees in the managed services division, and my clients represented 30% of the revenues. In fact, over that time frame, I had consulted with over 1,000 small and medium-sized businesses. Through the years, I have studied, I've observed, and I work side by side with engineering teams to create the most successful client verticals and programs in the company. I've come to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the MSP industry, and this includes processes supporting technology tools, best hiring practices, and issues with the pricing structure. I know what motivates the engineers, what discourages them, the best practices in the industry, and the industry benchmarks they all base their pricing and performance on. Since I have served on the front lines of bringing in new business, I have heard and seen all the games the MSPs play. My experience helps me identify the cause and effect of the breakdowns in technology, people, or processes. For instance, when somebody tells me of their bad experiences, I can tie it directly to the IT maturity level of the company and why it happened. Most importantly, I can tell you how to avoid the traps that make you hostage to your provider. Today, I work for Buildcorp, who owns 4 different engineering companies. NSI, our sponsor, is one of them. For NSI, I created the new customized IT program. It breaks out the services out into tiers, which not only allows for true customization, but also dramatically reduces 80% of the support costs while also increasing quality. So that's just a little bit about me. I want to explain why I wrote this book. I will not be doing this on every webinar, just this first one. You see, back in April, I heard one of those stories that are all too common in the IT outsourcing industry. A president of a local company was on his way home after letting his provider know he was ending the contract. On his way back to his office, he started receiving calls from his top clients. As soon as he hung up the phone, another one would call. One after another, his clients let him know that their patient list was made public and they could trace everything back to him. Needless to say, his provider had sabotaged him and he lost his top 10 clients within a week. Now, I could give you countless stories like this. Then it dawned on me, if people knew what I know, they would never end up with desperate, unethical companies. The truth is there are so many good IT support companies, but there are also just as many bad ones. I've always had a passion for what I do. I want to arm you with the knowledge on the IT support industry to make informed decisions and separate the good from the bad. Therefore, my motive for writing this book is to help, to warn, to educate, to advise, and to solve. Several months back, I conducted a survey with some industry leaders in various fields. They came from healthcare, retail, manufacturing, finance, and construction. They held titles such as CFO, CIO, IT Director, IT Analyst, Controller, and Operations Director. They are the decision makers for their companies, ranging in size from 200 to 11,000 users. Now, I gave each of them a scenario in which they were a small business decision maker looking for a new IT support company. They were required to gather 3 quotes. They received 1 referral, but they still needed to find 2 more IT companies. I asked them to search the web and let me know which websites intrigued them, which ones stood out over the others, and which ones they would choose to call. Now, I am really blessed because each one of the participants took this task very seriously and spent several hours on the survey. Maybe it is because we have years of experience networking together, but it still really impressed me and it made me feel really good. I asked each one of them to be brutally honest with me and find the good qualities in each competitor. They Googled IT support, IT Atlanta, MSP, and managed services. The results of the competing websites were disappointing and brought about a lot of feelings of frustration. They just couldn't narrow it down with any confidence. Why? The competitors' websites all, and I can't stress all enough, stated in one way or another that they were the best. They were responsive and they listened, as though their competitors didn't. They showed their service offerings, which were mostly the same, and they showed the industries they served. Some had scare tactics, while others mentioned pain points, but they all had very much the same message. We are the best, we listen, and we're highly responsive. So how does one choose from that? Even if it was all referrals, they all look alike and talk alike. After the survey, they shared countless stories with me of bad service and unpredictable invoices. As they shared their experiences, I could easily identify what plan they were on, why they had those particular issues, and what could have been done to prevent it. Hence, one of the motivations for this book. To warn. There's an old saying, desperate people do desperate things. During my time in this industry, I've seen so many good people that have been taken advantage of and mistreated by their IT support companies. I felt the desperation as very intelligent people were held hostage to their server password, add-ons, or contracts. Yes, I have been involved in rescuing someone from a situation where an ex-internal IT person had gone through the back door and stole client information or changed prices on their website. Oh, and I've also seen a company in the process of leaving the provider that was so spiteful they called the client's largest customer, the VA, and claimed they weren't compliant. they were. Yes, I have countless stories that would make you question the decency of mankind, but I don't want you to lose hope. Like I said before, there are so many good IT support companies, and there's one out there that's just right for you. Little hint, those that rank high on the IT maturity level are not desperate, and they don't panic when they lose a client. In fact, they are not dependent on any one client to stay in business. That's one of the reasons why today's topic is so important. The IT maturity level of your support provider is extremely important, but we'll get more into that later. When searching for an MSP, you will need to perform a lot of due diligence to find the right one. Yet, when you search for MSPs online, you will actually come up with 268 million results. Now that's crazy. We are going to make the process easier for you. Soon, you will be able to identify the pricing program that they are selling and the pros and cons of each. You'll know what questions to ask and the answers to seek. To advise. At my last company, there was a phrase that was used to describe clients who used multiple services within the company, and that phrase was sticky. For instance, if you signed up for hosting, it would be costly and time-consuming to move to another provider. That makes it sticky or hard to leave. The same can be true for phone systems, renting equipment, custom programming websites, and the list goes on. Then there are other add-ons that are easy to get out of. I want you to know the difference. To solve. You need to not only understand the IT maturity level that we're covering today, but you also need to understand the pros and cons of each pricing plan, the types of add-ons and which ones you should stay clear from, when the right time is to bring in your own IT department, and what you should or should not be including in your IT support contract. It starts with knowing how to look under the covers and understand if they have the capabilities to deliver the services you need and claim to have. That starts with the IT maturity level. Then you need to understand the IT support plan. Is it a flat fee, use it or lose it, blocks of time, or is it something else? Every IT support plan does have its place, and each plan has its pros and cons. It's up to you, the client, to decide what you are willing to tolerate and what you're not. So what you really need is a way to make sense of it all and to set clear expectations moving forward. Now, it is my belief that you will never be disappointed if you know exactly what it is that you're getting into. So now we are going to get to the root of how to compare IT support companies, and it all starts with the IT maturity level. Here's a question. Is the IT maturity level measured in years, processes, experience, or a combination? Let's look. Insight has been in business for over 24 years. My previous company was in business for 21 years, and they grew to be one of the largest SMB IT support providers in the United States before they sold and started focusing on Fortune 500. I know of a competitor that has been in business for 27 years, and they can't get over the hump. They grow to 45 people, and they drop back down to 16 over and over again because of shady practices. I've also seen newcomers pop up out of nowhere and take the IT industry by storm in a very short period of time. Why? Because they have the processes and IT maturity level to make it work. According to Help Systems, who's an IT management software company, IT organizations that rank low on the maturity scale for IT management practices fight an average of 8 unexpected IT issues per week. That requires 7 staff members to each spend more than 3 hours resolving it. That's 190 hours a week or 4.7 full-time employees. The fact is, when an IT organization is productive and efficient, they spend less time putting out fires and more time planning. I like to use Gartner's Mature IT Organization Assessment Tool with regard to infrastructure and operations. Yes, that is the full name of it. This is the best example of a mature IT organization scale. And if you don't know Gartner, they are the world's leading information technology research and advisory firm. In their maturity model, they classify the different levels as level 1, which is a point of awareness. At this stage, the organization is reactive and crisis-driven. They start to see the need and begin to take action to gain operational control and visibility, but they are still very much crisis-driven. Level 2 is committed. They are moving to a managed environment to become more customer-centric and increase customer satisfaction. At enterprise level, they use a tiered structure to control cost, whereas most MSPs use a catch-all system where engineers work on the tickets that come in and escalate it if they cannot resolve it. Level 3 is proactive. They start to gain efficiencies and service quality through standardization, policy development, governance structures, and the implementation of proactive cross-departmental processes such as change and release management. At this point, they have implemented robust tools and defined processes to improve performance. Gartner defines level 3 as the first level that can be considered mature. Level 4 is service aligned. At this stage, they are managing IT like a business. Their customer service is focused, proven, competitive, and they're considered a trusted IT service provider. At this level, they have implemented industry best practices, process automation, and service level agreements. Level 5 is a business partner. This is the final stage where they are a trusted IT partner of business for increasing the value and competitiveness of a business process and of business as a whole. Organizations that view IT as a critical strategic lever should target this top level as an aspirational state. At this level, customer satisfaction or excellence level agreement, XLA, is the measurement of success. There are over 600 IT support companies in Atlanta alone, and there are more popping up and going out of business every day. Establishing an IT support company is extremely expensive, and it takes years to be profitable. For this reason, many startups try to get by on a shoestring budget. They find the cheapest tools to manage, monitor, and support their clients, and they get very cheap labor. But in the end, the client gets cheap results. Knowing the IT maturity level helps you avoid the fly-by-night companies. There are 3 pillars to indicate what level they are at. They include people, technology, and processes. So let's start with the first pillar, people. A good MSP knows that a quality engineer is valuable, and a great MSP knows that they're invaluable. Even during the recession, MSPs struggled to find quality engineers. In fact, since 2010, at least, there's been an average of 0.07% unemployment rate among IT support engineers. That's right, 0.07%, even during the Great Recession. MSPs compete against other MSPs and software companies, hardware companies, government, enterprise, and small businesses who want to hire internally. Engineers are our greatest asset, and we just simply can't afford to lose the good ones. Therefore, good MSPs will actually go as far as to fire a client who is needlessly rude, vile, or aggressive towards their engineers, because they are too precious to lose over someone who cannot or will not talk things out like a professional. As a client, you have it much easier than an MSP when it comes to finding a great engineering talent. All you need to do is choose the right MSP. I say that is easy, but only if you know what to look for. So let's first talk about background checks. It is absolutely vital to expect or even demand that your MSP has done a background check on all of their engineers. Think about all the sensitive information on your network, such as intellectual property, banking information, confidential emails, and other highly confidential information. Now you are going to hand this access, this vital information, over to a complete stranger. Why would you risk that without a background check? If you work in an industry that is governed by compliance standards, you're required to make sure the company you contract with does this. Please do not accept anything less than an agreement in writing that all engineers who have access to your systems have background checks performed. That would mean every engineer in their company, since they pick up the slack for one another. The secret to great engineers. When you look at a job description for engineers, it'll read like a technical manual. There's a string of technical competency that they must master. For MSPs, it's even greater because they expect the engineers to master all levels, not just the one that they're being hired for. As an end user, I'm sure that you have received help from several desktop engineers in work and in personal life. Certainly, there was one that stood out over time, either because he was so good or so really bad. The good ones probably listened to your issue, walked through the solution, fixed the problem, and went on their way. The bad one was probably condescending, talked the techie jargon over your head, and left you feeling lost as to what just happened. This brings me to the most important ingredient: great communication skills. Yes, being technically astute is an important quality, but I would much rather get someone who is good with technology and give them the resources to be great than to hire someone who's going to chase away my clients. Any network operation manager knows that knowledge can only be used on machines, not people. They know a great engineer should be able to communicate through stressful situations, have empathy, exercise patience, show confidence in their work, and be technically astute. This is hard to find, especially when you consider the low unemployment rate in this industry. However, it is very common with small MSPs to talk the techie talk rather than communicate the solutions in layman's terms. While their techie knowledge is quite impressive at first, it becomes old quickly. I can't tell you the countless times a prospect has told me that their IT guy showed up, went into the server room closet, stayed there for 5 hours, and gave them a whopping bill. When they asked him what he did, he spoke circles around them with techie jargon. At the end of the day, they had no idea what they paid for or why it was necessary. They felt bullied and lost, and I'm here to tell you that that is not the way IT support is supposed to be delivered. After all, the most important word in IT support is support. So ask what their hiring standards are and make sure that communication skills is one of them. The second most important ingredient is problem-solving skills that are aligned to the tier level in which they work. Now, what do I mean by this? A Tier 1 engineer must be good at simple tasks such as password changes, printer issues, etc. They resolve 60% of the end-user issues. Now, a Tier 2 engineer must be proficient at troubleshooting more advanced desktop issues. They resolve around 20% of the end-user issues. The Tier 3 team takes care of issues where multiple end users are affected. They take care of highly advanced issues, projects, and network architecture. Therefore, as an example, a Tier 3 engineer who was hired to be an Exchange expert must be very skilled at that particular software. The problem with most MSP providers is that they try to hire engineers that are proficient at all levels. It's what I call a catch-all strategy. It doesn't benefit the client, the MSP, or the engineer. In fact, engineers get bored easily, and if they're not challenged, they lose their momentum and they become stagnant. They can't be on a fast track to learn something new all the time, or on a slow track and take Tier 1 and Tier 2 calls. The difference in salary and technical skill is drastically different 5 years down the road. So for the sake of all, no one should ask a Tier 3 engineer to take Tier 1 level issues or vice versa. They are either wasting the engineer's talents and charging you too much for simple problems, or you are paying the cost for someone to work on advanced issues who does not have the experience or capability to handle it. thus resulting in extreme downtime. So imagine for a moment a company that hires all Tier 3 engineers for a catch-all support program. How much do they have to charge you to make a profit? Yet the real kicker is that 80% of your issues are so simple that an entry-level engineer in turn can master them. In fact, much of it can be script-based. Yes, 80% are password changes, printer connection issues, display issues, updates, viruses, things of that nature that can be resolved within 15 minutes. So please tell me again why you're paying Tier 3 rates if 80% of the issues are Tier 1 or Tier 2 level. I have one chapter that goes into the math behind each support program. For instance, if you are paying a flat rate of $75 per seat, you're actually paying $150 an hour for every problem. Now, how do I figure that? The industry standard states that it takes anywhere between a fourth of an hour per workstation, half an hour per workstation to support an environment. So if they can handle 2 computers in an hour, that is $75 times 2 equaling $150. Next thing I want to talk about is interns and co-ops. Did you know that MSPs are one of the largest employers of interns and co-ops who are studying engineering? Now these are great hires. I'm a big fan of this. They're eager to learn and they're easily moldable. My company likes to hire local interns from Kennesaw State or Georgia Tech, train them, and then provide them a career path. We train them on our system, our workflow processes, and our culture to integrate them into our work family. When they graduate, we offer them an advancement. It's a win-win for all. You can find some real superstars this way. Just know that MSPs can get them at super cheap rates, around $24 an hour, and most will continue to bill you at $100 to $250 per hour. Do the engineers need a college degree? No. Did you know that there is not an actual degree that maps directly to IT support engineering role? The closest would be computer science degree, which is really computer programming. The next best match is electrical engineering. Both form a wide and overlapping set of disciplines. Most of the skills the engineers learn are actually in the field and through certifications and training. It is experience and problem-solving abilities that raise the best IT support talent in the field, not a degree. In my personal opinion, I think that interns are great. The next thing I want to talk about is outsourcing. I think outsourcing some of your service can be okay if they're not customer facing. It all depends on what's important to you. If you are like my boss, you will want to hire locally to support the local economy and culture. However, it may upset you to learn that for every $3 they spend offshore, they charge you $100 to $250 per hour. Now that's a killing in profits. Again, it's all about a matter of your preference and priorities. So to summarize this section up, good engineers are hard to come by. They must have great communication skills under pressure and be technically astute. They always work best in a tiered structure where they can increase their technical knowledge while also providing you, the client, a better service at a better rate. Technology is the second pillar. Now, I may be telling my age, but when I was a teenager in the late 1980s, very late, many people thought that the age of computers would allow everyone more time to rest. The tech industry claimed that computers would eventually allow all of us to sit back while the computers did most of the work. Sci-fi stories of robots taking over the world were entertainment. It was a nice dream to have computers do everything for you. Imagine sipping martinis on the beach, listening to the lapping waves and seagulls cawing, and feeling the sunlight against your bare skin, all because you completed all of your work for the week in the first 2 days. Wrong. Technology has forced us to move at such a rapid pace and do more than ever before in a short period of time. The expectations in work and private life are high. People expect instantaneous response, immediate support. They not only put this pressure on themselves, but they also expect everyone that serves them to provide the same level of support. I don't think that anyone is feeling the pressure more than the MSPs. See, MSPs must be more efficient and better than everyone else because they control the technology. So the tools MSPs use must be highly robust and efficient. At the very least, an MSP must have a robust ticketing system, monitoring software, and asset tracking software meant to serve multiple clients. Small MSPs can't afford this because it's expensive to license and maintain. And it can take several years before an MSP is profitable enough to do things the right way. Note, this is a very good reason why you should not follow your favorite IT guy when he goes independent. You will lose service quality. The key ingredient for mature IT organizations in regard to technology are the ticketing system, monitoring system, and asset tagging. So why is a ticketing system important? First, you must understand what a ticketing system does. For starter, it tracks hundreds of metrics to ensure systems and processes are working efficiently and effectively as possible to meet the needs of the customers. This is measured by key performance indicators, or KPIs, which are compared against industry benchmarks. For instance, if a technician is averaging 20 minutes to resolve a ticket and the industry states it should be around 10 minutes, then something needs to be adjusted. These KPIs can help a company determine policies and standardization for continuous improvement. As an IT support consultant in the SMB space, I have spent a lot of time with companies who did not have an internal IT department and some that did. The internal IT departments would easily find themselves overwhelmed and would seek out a company to remove some of the burden. Many times, their ticketing system captured such little information that it couldn't even produce the most basic of reports, such as how many calls per month, peak times, what are your most common types of issues. This basic information would allow me to determine the maturity level of the organization, how I could help them, and what type of work I could expect to staff appropriately. Now imagine if an MSP ticketing system was just as limited, which many are. How could they improve delivery for you? There are several ticketing systems on the market. An MSP needs a robust ticketing platform to service multiple clients. Several are designed specifically for MSPs. They range from free to thousands of dollars in licensing annually. The free ones lack security along with the necessary reporting capabilities to continuously improve their own performance. The more expensive ones have all the bells and whistles, including monitoring software and asset tagging. So my question to you, why should you pay the same hourly rate for an MSP who is low on the IT maturity scale as one who ranks high and continuously improves their service delivery? What do you gain by hiring them? My best recommendation for you is to make sure the system they use can track the information so that they can continuously improve their performance to you and their other clients. Two of the most common ones are Sharewell and ConnectWise. Then we have the network monitoring system. Network monitoring tools alert, audit, patch, report, automate, and allow custom scripting. It catches issues early and it prevents future issues. Only quality MSPs use robust monitoring system called Remote Monitoring and Management System, RMM. The RMM enables the MSP to oversee the network infrastructure for any failures to ensure maximum uptime and monitor servers, routers, and firewalls. The network engineer can set up the thresholds, and if failure is detected or there is a bottleneck in the system, the monitoring software will immediately notify him or her of any issues. There are many benefits to using an RMM software. Some of them include monitor operating system event logs, program to automatically apply fixes, provide system failure alerts to the Network Operations Center for immediate response, scans the network for any areas of weakness, and the list goes on. What does desktop monitoring do? Desktop monitoring is a part of the RMM that helps the MSP remotely monitor the client's networks, computers, and endpoints. It is an agent installed on the computers to alert the MSP if any issues such as viruses, updates, or patches required or failed parts. Further, the software allows for checkups on the CPU, memory, hard drives, and utilization, among many other things. Let's face it, computer systems are not cheap, and you need to keep them healthy if you want a return on your investment. Desktop monitoring allows MSPs to protect against common hardware issues to prolong the life cycle and improve your ROI. Since 80% of your issues are desktop related, this is absolutely necessary to stabilize your network environment. After all, it is a known fact that unresolved issues like missed updates or patches can escalate into much bigger problems such as viruses or leaving a door open to hackers. In my opinion, this should be part of your agreement, as it helps the provider to manage you better and it protects you against common equipment issues. Therefore, if the provider does not offer this service, run far, far away. Last, we have asset tracking software. Asset tracking allows the MSP to track the physical assets of the system, operating system, software, their location, who it's assigned to, past issues, status, maintenance schedule, and other vital information through the use of a barcode or radio frequency identification, or RFID technology. Asset tagging has a number of benefits, including track the total cost of ownership, track the history of issues on each device as it changes hands, helps project manager identify new hardware or software requirements for large deployments across multiple devices, depreciation lists for your CPAs, and inventory lists for your insurance. Asset tracking can also integrate into the RMM, and it is an important tool for mature MSP organization. There are other tools the MSP resells, such as antivirus, Office 365, spam filtering, tons of options like this, but these are the most important ones to help manage you. I actually cover the others in another section. Okay, the next pillar is processes. Now, processes help the staff with everyday routines without making them stop and think of every mundane task each step of the way. In addition, processes allow the engineers to free up their mind and concentrate on the task at hand by providing a program for repeated activities. Processes are the only way to create consistency of service. Yet for them to work, they must be specific to the service delivery and adhered to by the engineers. When either of these fail, you receive poor customer service. A mature IT organization has invested time and tools to ensure processes help with continuous improvement and premium service. Processes are the cornerstone for efficient and excellent service. And a successful process will cut through the whole entire organization, including sales, accounting, HR, and the list goes on. For instance, I had a client once who understood our escalation policy very well. Why? Because this was one of my selling points. I would share that the engineer had 15 minutes to define the problem and the resolution and map out a plan. If they could not do this, they were required to escalate the issue to a more senior engineer or someone who was more familiar with the issue. The original engineer would still own the ticket, but the second engineer would fix the problem as they would watch. This served three purposes. First, it sped up the time to resolution for the client. Second, the engineer increased his or her knowledge base. And third, the client didn't have to re-explain the ticket over and over again as it changed hands from one engineer to another. That sounds great, right? Well, it was right up to the point that the engineer did not follow the process. You see, engineers are notorious for wanting to solve problems on their own, no matter how long it takes. I imagine that they are the last to ask for directions if they were to get lost on the road. So when Mike was at a client site for 4 hours without a plan of action for a single desktop issue, I heard about it. He didn't realize that this was not about him. Because of his unwillingness to let go of the issue, an important executive was without the use of her computer for 4 hours. Our company lost money. We certainly couldn't charge the client for our engineer learning on her time. The cost of that one ticket to us was the engineering salary plus the potential billable time, equaling $580 in loss. I have no idea of the financial impact to the client. Yes, processes form the framework to improve operational efficiency and deliver a premier service. To me, the most important one is how to measure performance metrics. Now, metrics are great for continuous improvement, but it can also be a source of conflict on behalf of the engineer. A great operations manager I once worked with told me the following: it's okay to make mistakes, just don't make them twice. Instead, learn from them. Always have good intentions and do what's best for the client, and it will always ensure your job here. We will give you a team to depend on and all the resources and tools at your disposal if you just do what's best for the client. Those things should be the goal of any MSP, but many focus too much on billable time or other multiple metrics to incentivize their engineers. Yet, in the end, all it does is encourage the engineer to either kick back once they've reached their goals or manipulate the numbers to reach their goals, neither of which is best for the client. To avoid this, make sure the engineer is not incentivized by their billable time. At Insight, they don't even let the employee know what their billable time is. So I give several examples in this chapter on different ways that processes are used to improve performance. But I also give examples of when the processes fail. And we are going to go through that when Stephen rejoins us as we go through the exercise of giving him some issues and having him map it back to the original problem. So let's go on to the next one. Okay, so pay very close attention to this. It takes all three, processes, people, and technology, to equal success. Technology provides the tools to monitor, respond, and strategically plan. Now, engineers without the right tools results in confusion. Technology without the processes results in inaction. And processes without action results in failure. So all three are equally important. Now it's time for exercise. I'm going to give Stephen some examples of issues that I commonly hear from my prospects, and he will tell us why they are likely experiencing that issue. Let's start with the engineers learning on my time. Stephen, I've heard this time and time again where the engineer spends an exorbitant amount of time on an issue, and it's very clear that they don't know what it is that they're doing.
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple of things that could cause that to happen, but I think the primary thing that causes that is that the engineer isn't escalating properly. A lot of engineers kind of get bogged down, or they put the tunnel vision on and they're just start looking where the problem's not. And this happens a lot with the inexperienced engineers. And those engineers need to have a little alarm go off that says, it's been 10 or 15 minutes, I need to reach out and get some help. That's what we tell our beginning engineers. If you don't know what the problem is or you don't have a solution to the problem, then you need to escalate within 10 to 15 minutes. You need to at least reach out to a higher level engineer or a senior engineer to get you pointed in the right direction to make sure that the issue is getting resolved. But a lot of that concern I think you're hearing from clients is that the clients are being charged for that time too. And part of that, I think, is also a management issue with that. So we try to review our tickets. So before we send out the tickets to the clients on what work we've done, if we see an engineer spending too much time with something, we'll address that beforehand. And we have two types of manager review tickets. We have team leads, which team leads are reviewing tickets specifically for engineers and engineer times to make sure the engineer is doing their work properly. And then we have client support managers, which are managers dedicated to that client to make sure that the work being done for the client is good for the client as well, that the proper time is spent working on the issue and that the issues are being resolved.
Well, it's even an issue even if they are not being billed for that time and they have what's called a flat fee plan, correct?
Yeah, if it's a flat fee plan where it's an all you can eat and the engineers are taking too much time to fix something, then it's the problem isn't being resolved in a proper amount of time.
Right.
And the engineer still needs to escalate at that point. I mean, that's more on the IT to make sure that we're making sure that these problems are taken care of efficiently and the problems and the solutions being implemented are the proper solution for the client.
Right, and it results in a lot of downtime for the client as well.
Right.
Okay, so the next thing is repeat questions. Now, we've all had it happen in our personal and professional life where we call into a help desk and tell them our problem only to be transferred to someone else, and then they have to transfer us to someone else. And if we're lucky, it would stop there, but then it continues on, starting from scratch each time. Stephen, what do you think is going on in this scenario?
Well, it sounds like they're trying to escalate, but there's a huge breakdown in communication. The engineer that's originally working on the issue isn't communicating what they've done with the senior level engineer or the next tier level engineer, however they have their support designed. So with that, you don't want an engineer just to transfer you, and we don't do that. What we do is the lower level engineer will call over the more senior engineer to work side by side. That way, both engineers work together on the issue. This eliminates the duplicate questions. Now, there might be a duplicate question just to verify something, but it does save time because the original engineer will say, here is everything that I've tried, here's all the information I've gathered, and the senior engineer or the more experienced engineer can pick up from that point and realize that all the initial troubleshooting steps have been done. So this will save time for the client because the client doesn't have to sit there and re-answer all 5 questions again. Is it plugged in? Have they rebooted? What's the error message? Simple things like that. What's the problem or what's going on? That should never be a repeat question. That stuff should be handed to the other engineer who already knows what's going on. Hopefully the other engineer is more familiar with the client's network and they've kind of seen this issue before, or they know where the original problem is happening. This also is a benefit to us because our less experienced engineer starts to learn more. They learn more from watching the senior engineers side by side so that their skill level goes up as well.
That's great. Yeah, in my experience, it really speeds up the time to resolution when you have a mentoring escalation process like that. Okay, so the next one is long resolution times. I have heard of a situation where it takes weeks or months to get an issue resolved. Stephen, what's going on here?
Well, generally to me, that is a rare thing for an issue to take a long time to resolve. I've known only a couple of them, and in my experience, that's when there's multiple parties involved, and the parties are on the same page, or the parties have a different response system. Like if we're working with a vendor and we can't even pick up the phone to call the vendor, we have to open a support ticket and email them to wait for a response. That will cause some delay. So a lot of that is a breakdown in communication. Sometimes it's waiting for feedback. We reach out to the client to say, can you please verify this? And we don't hear back until the next week. And it depends on the nature of the problem. If it's a problem where we have to wait to see if it reoccurs, and it's something that happens, it could happen once every 2 weeks, well, we have to clear that 2-week period to verify that the problem has been resolved, right? So it just depends on the nature of the problem there. But if the nature of the problem, it seems like it's a simple issue, that simple issue just reoccurs over and over again, it sounds like that's a staffing issue. What I mean by that is that there's a lower level engineer working on the issue. They read a ticket, they see how it's fixed before, they apply that fix, and so they band-aid the issue. And so when the issue starts happening again, instead of it starts to bleed again, they just put another band-aid on it. They don't try to find out what caused that original issue or what makes that issue happen again. They just simply band-aid the issue to get the client to work. I'm okay with that to get the client to work, but we need to go in and find, if it happens 2 or 3 times, at that point, the engineer should be looking at all the tickets for the client, see that this issue has happened, reoccurred multiple times, and then take the proper steps to put another more senior level resource on it to find out why this is a reoccurring issue. And if that's not happening, if these issues are dragging out for months and months and months, that could be a staffing issue because they don't have the senior level resources to dedicate to resolve that issue. But it's also a communication problem, and it's also a failure in process because the engineers aren't checking previous tickets to see, hey, is this an issue that reoccurs? And they're not looking over the information that they have in front of them.
I understand. Yeah, in my experience, it's the majority of the time it's that they're understaffed, but I can certainly see all your other points.
Yeah, and one of the things we'd like to ask when we're working on an issue is, hey, is this the first time this has happened or is this reoccurring? That should be one of the questions that the engineer working on the issue should ask right away. Mm-hmm. Just like, hey, is this the first time or has this happened before? Depending on the nature of the issue.
That makes sense. Okay. What about long response times? What can you tell me when it takes a long period of time for somebody to get back to the client?
That just seems like a staffing issue to me, more because, or breakdown of communication. So if the company's having you just reach out to a single engineer, well, you're waiting for that one engineer to respond. We want our clients to respond to the help desk, and so we have a help desk email which, when they do respond to it, it responds directly to the ticket, and we see that ticket open up in bold saying, hey, the client has responded to this ticket, and then someone on the team can take it from there. We try to put it on the engineers originally working on it, but if they're out or on site, that engineer needs to communicate back to the team saying, hey, can someone follow up on this or email me about that? So we want to be responsive with that. So that's a breakdown of procedure where the engineer doesn't hand it off because they're on site or working on something else, or they don't have anyone to hand it off to.
Right. So it's very common with an independent contractor or a 1-2 person man shop.
Right. Because we do different things every day. Sometimes we're in the office, sometimes we're on site, sometimes we're working remotely from somewhere else. So with technology, we're able to respond quickly. Email, we get that on our computer, on our phones, but if you should be able to get a quick response on an email or a simple question, but if they're not doing that, they're not handing that off to somebody else that could answer and handle it better because either they're not following procedure or there isn't anyone else available.
Okay. Well, we've got time for one more question, and we need to make this quick. When I talk to some of my clients, they seem to have several issues all at once. Their AV isn't being kept up to date, hardware is no longer being supported, hard drive is filling up, and the client isn't sure if their backups are actually working. So when I'm meeting with these prospects, what should I tell them is going on in the background? What's most likely the cause of that?
The cause of that, some of those things you're kind of talking about, would be that the IT provider isn't doing basic preventive maintenance on your network. If that's a part of your plan, that they're not keeping that up to date, or if they're not even offering that, because that's something that should be regularly checked up on, especially antivirus. For example, we need to make sure that the antivirus is being kept up to date. So what we do is, for one, we monitor it, but two is we'll do quarterly preventive maintenance. And people will ask, like, well, if you're monitoring my stuff, why do you need to come out and take a look at it? Well, I have to make sure my monitoring agents are working. I have to make sure that what information we've been fed by our agents is accurate. That yes, the antivirus is up to date on the PC, and I'm not getting a false positive there. Those are the kind of things that would cause that to happen if they don't have a regular maintenance plan to make sure these things are taken care of. So we do quarterly preventive maintenance to make sure that AV is up to date. We check the status of the hardware. We want to look at the servers, get our eyes on the servers and any kind of equipment they have on site. I've seen it where the software on the server isn't working, and when we go on site and look at the server, there's a giant orange light saying there's a hard drive failed, but the software wasn't working properly, so we never knew until we came outside and looked at it. But this sounds like when all those problems are happening at once, it sounds like they're not, the MSP isn't keeping things up to date. They don't have a maintenance plan to keep things rolling. They don't have updates scheduled. And the thing about backups, you should never ever have to question whether or not you have working backups. And not only do we check to make sure, hey, we're getting a event log that says the backup's completed, we do a test restore, because like I said, software doesn't always report properly. Let's test to make sure that I can recover a file from those backups.
Yeah, so what I see a lot of time when it comes to the quarterly preventive maintenance is that those that are on the lower end of the IT maturity scale are not doing this. Why do you think that is?
It's expensive.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time to go through and do proper checks. And the clients don't, the MSP doesn't, they don't advertise it because they can't afford to do it, or that it's too expensive for them to do it.
Okay. All right. Well, Stephen, I really appreciate your time, and we're going to jump over to the questions and answer section next.